All right. Welcome to the Somm Demand Studio. David Roby here, joined by an old friend.
Hi, my name is Margaret.
Margaret. We go way back, don't we?
We do.
We do. You're one of the first people I was tasting wine with.
We were. Very first tasting group. Almost 10 years now, right?
I don't like to count, but yeah, probably about 10
It might
years.
age us a little bit.
Yeah. And you're a mother of two.
I am a mother of two, but still a sommelier first and foremost. But now with the mother aspect, looking for wines that are just easy, exactly what I want and I need, and that I don't have to think about.
Yeah, you're a Somm mom.
A Somm mom. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know. I think you're selling yourself short. You, when we still taste, you're very in tune, and you've definitely passed a glass here or there.
Well, it's hard to turn it off. You have kids, but your love of wine never goes away.
Never goes away. And so with Somm Demand, we're thinking about what to do this winter, and we came up with a few packs, Syrah, and then it's like, well, who loves Syrah?
It's one of the first grapes that I fell in love with. It's so versatile. It can be extremely balanced when you find the right style that you're looking for. It can be spicy and full flavored, but it can also have this kind of minerality and structure.
It's got a lot of complexity.
It's so complex, but I think that's what we're here to kind of dive into.
It's complex in flavor, and it's we're trying to simplify it and kind of bring a little easier understanding. So, our goal in this one is to give you an exploration into 3 distinct regions and styles that you might come to find in those regions that, are fairly typical. So, we're going to do the Northern Rhône here. So in France, and specifically, we're doing the Saint Joseph appellation from Faury, and it's the 2020.
Yeah.
And then we have the Ramey Syrah from Sonoma Coast, California, is the appellation. And then we'll be finishing with the Shiraz.
The Shiraz.
The Shiraz, which is also a Syrah from the Hunter Valley appellation in Australia. Margaret, if I were to ask you to kind of give us a little summary of the Northern Rhône, or not specifically Saint Joseph, but just the overview of Northern Rhône Syrah, what would you tell me about?
So the Northern Rhône is, the classic region that you would find Syrah. Historically, you get these great flavors from different locations. If you've ever been to a supermarket and you're looking for French Syrah, you might find Hermitage, Cornas, Côte-Rôtie, or Saint Joseph on a label. And Saint Joseph, being the largest of the appellations, has different kind of styles within those appellation, but all of them have that kind of classic, more restrained, I hate to say French feel to it, but they're always very delicious. But this one, I think, again, kind of balance and benchmark for the style of wine that we like to drink.
Yeah, definitely a benchmark producer and style for the Northern Rhône, and kind of the birthplace of modern Syrah. And what I think California and even Australian producers might look for as their kind of guidelines.
I think a lot of people, small anecdote, would take trimmings from this location to bring to California or to bring to Australia.
Are you implying theft?
No. People look to the Northern Rhône as the benchmark to make their wines.
They definitely steal them. So then we'll move on to California from there, because as we've learned in many tastings, climate has a lot to do with richness of wine. And so Sonoma Coast specifically gives us a middle ground kind of between French and maybe the ripest New World style. So while in California, we have many different agricultural regions and grape growing regions, we think of Napa Valley just to the east of Sonoma Coast. This is going to be a little more balanced style, not quite as rich and extracted or dark as Napa, not quite as close to the equator as we'll find with Hunter Valley. And so kind of this middle ground of those aromatics that you might find in France, but with a little more of that California body to it.
That coastal influence really comes into play, where the Sonoma Coast kind of gets those wind qualities that if you were to try to get something from Napa, you don't get that same kind of cooling from the ocean.
Right, which ends up in a bigger wine.
Yeah.
And then Australia.
Yeah, this is Australia Hunter Valley. It's just a little north of Sydney, a little northwest. It's on a kind of historic region where it started in the 1800s. So Syrah has been, or Shiraz has been growing there for, 100 years now. And again, because it's on this river valley, you still get those unctuous flavors because Australia is a little closer to the equator. It is a little bit of a warmer area, but because of the river, it's giving it a little bit of a cooler, kind of coastal quality to the wine that I think kind of you can see through all of these wines, that same kind of more approachable, lighter style to Syrah and Shiraz.
Right. And the color, I think, of fruit, you'll notice gets darker as we move down. So we start with the brighter fruits, and then the Australian Shiraz always has these kind of dark blackberries to it.
Yeah, you can definitely see just the vividness of the Shiraz is more concentrated in color in the glass.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of alluded to this, but I think maybe just a little. What does Syrah taste like?
Syrah, wow. I mean, it can taste like so many things, but I think as a kind of overview about what Syrah can be like, it has these great kind of savory, fruity characteristics, the florals. You've got violet and lavender. You can even kind of get this black pepper and meaty quality with certain Syrahs. But there's even, plum and cassis, and there can even be some black olive.
Yeah, it's just such a wide spectrum. So I set you up for a question you can't answer, but I think you answered it really well.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about Syrah. You're looking for something to drink with some food, or if you're looking for something just to drink and sit with friends and chat, this grape can be any of those things.
Yeah, you just got to find that right style for that right moment. And so with all that kind of all those flavors and all that spectrum, is there at least some consistency in body and texture, or are we also finding ourselves like kind of running a spectrum as well?
I think, again, because of location and winemaker style, you can still get that kind of classic medium plus bodied. It can be fuller in flavor. There's a little bit of acidity, but it's, that's why we're here, to be able to help you pick out the ones that work best for you and for your evening.
Yeah. And you mentioned something huge there, that winemaker style. And, and a lot of times we talk about new oak and old, used oak and stuff like that. But with Syrah, we're dealing with something called whole cluster.
That's right. Yeah.
Or as you call it, stems.
That's right. Stems. Or as what you would perceive in your mouth and your palate is the tannins that, you can sometimes get. Because with winemaker style, you can either take the grape and pull it completely off of the stem, and which would be called a destemmed style of wine, very fruit forward because of that. Or what we like to say is you could throw stems in with the grapes as you're vinifying the wine. Just whole cluster, and it gives it texture and spice.
Florality.
It can change the way that it smells.
Sometimes it can bleed out a little color as well.
It does. It can change the way that the color looks. If there's a lot of stems, the color isn't going to be as dark and as as concentrated as something that is destemmed.
And so we bring up stems, in whole cluster because in Syrah and Pinot Noir are really the two grapes that we see a lot of stem inclusion or whole cluster. Most every other grape, that we drink is,
I would say most 75 to 80% of wine mostly is destemmed because it takes away from the purity of the grape. It changes, and again, but it's not to say that having stems is bad. It enhances, it changes, it helps the wine evolve, and it helps it sometimes in its aging process.
Yeah, I find most complementary in Syrah and Pinot to the grape. Well, all this talk about Syrah, I'm thirsty.
I know. I am getting really thirsty talking. I love talking with you, but I think we're here to do one thing,
Yeah,
right?
but we're standing, so the sooner we finish this, we can sit down. So
Oh, well, and enjoy a bottle of wine.
I'm just cheers. Well, cheers before
Cheers.
we go. Cheers.
Such a pretty red fruit quality with the San Josef.
Yeah. Well, that florality you're mentioning.
It's really uplifting. It kind of jumps out of the glass, which is really nice.
I almost taste the violets.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's like I taste violets, but the fruit is still brighter fruit than something quite that purple. But
it is. It's not very overly purple, and then right at the finish, you get just a little bit of texture that really makes you want to, eat some food with it.
I think that's that mouth-watering acidity.
It is. It's that mouth-watering acidity with a little bit of texture. Yeah. And I think that has to go with a little bit of this winemaking style, right?
Absolutely. It's about 60-70% whole cluster.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, 60-70% destem.
Yes.
30 or 40% whole cluster vintage to vintage. And then I also want to kind of just show, where we are. So, Paris, very far up in the north here in France. And then to the south here, we have the Rhône Valley, and the Southern Rhône is where you'll find the very famous Châteauneuf-du-Pape,
yes,
GSM
Grenache,
blends.
things like that.
Right, but the Northern Rhône is this small strip that we have. And this small strip is, all Syrah, really? All Syrah, except for a little bit of Viognier that they put in Côte-Rôtie. So we're in the San Josef appellation, which Margaret mentioned is the largest area. But here you really just find these kind of classic aromas, this spiciness, this florality, a little more acidity in the wines.
And you can tell that because of the quality of destemming and the foudry aging, those kind of barrique, the style, it really kind of enhances those flavors and textures coming through the wine.
Yeah. She mentioned foudre. So foudres are very, they call them botis in Italy. It just means very large.
Yeah, they have the wine has a lot of space to do its thing. It doesn't touch a lot of wood, so you're getting the purity of the wine, and not too much influence from oak that you would usually find in another style of wine.
Wow, the fruit is beautiful.
It is. It's so unctuous in that red fruit quality.
Soft.
It is. It's very easy. Almost a day drinking kind of style.
I feel some tannins, but they're kind of in the mid palate. I think it's a little bit of that stem. It's not like oak tannins, which would be like really brooding. It's more of just a texture that kind of creates a little tension on the palate.
And what I'm going to talk to you so much about food. What do you think that you'd want to eat with this?
I mean, I'm a grill man. And the real coals are the only barbecue I talk about. So I would, if I'm doing some grilled chicken, some pork ribs, something like that. But one of my best friends is a vegetarian, and I know that you are a big proponent of eating a little healthier than I can be at times.
You got to throw those veggies on the grill. Mm-hmm. You can really get that good char flavor. And I think something like a vegetable isn't going to be overpowered by a red wine like this, especially if you get a little bit of that charry quality to it. Mm-hmm. So even like, Burmese food, Indian cuisine can go with this. Savory spices really go well with this style of Syrah from San Josef. Pepper tofu, I think, is another one because there is a little bit of that peppery quality to it. But again, any of the styles of food aren't going to be overpowered by this style of wine.
I mean, this wine is, medium plus bodied, maybe. Yes. It's not a heavy wine. It's got great acidity. It's got all these savory flavors, so it can take on a lot of flavor, I think, is kind of what you're getting to, which is why tofu, which is kind of a neutral palate, can take on that pepper. And, you have all those flavors that in Burmese and Indian, you mentioned, all the cumin and things like that, all these hearty spices, but the food itself isn't so heavy. I think
exactly.
I love that.
Because this isn't a super heavy Syrah either, which I think,
which is why I think my glass is gone.
I mean, that means it's good. That's a good thing, right?
Typically. No offense to any other glass that might not be
No, we're just not there yet. We're not there yet. And then, so let's move on. I'm going to take one more sip, and then let's move on to California.
I'm moving on to California, where we are.
Right in our backyard.
Right off the bat, the nose is just much deeper.
It is so much more aromatic and concentrated in style.
Concentrated,
and the fruit, it doesn't seem as red fruited as the San Josef. It's a little more purple. It's a little blue. These are darker, a little bit richer.
Oh yeah, it's almost got like a sweeter fruit nose to it.
It does have a sweeter nose. And why do you think it would have a little bit of a sweeter quality to it?
Well, I cheated, and I already know that they do a little bit of new oak on this. So I do know that that's probably what's contributing to it, but I wasn't looking for it. It was just like really distinct as I go from one glass to the other, which is why these tastings are super fun because actually,
right? No new oak.
Yeah,
a little new oak.
This is the first time I've tasted these three wines all together. You know, I taste them here and here and here. So even for me as a sommelier who tastes wine every day, it was just immediately startling to me.
Yeah, you taste a lot of wine, but sometimes you don't ever taste them side by side.
Yeah, context is everything.
Yeah. Wow, it's so much different in the mouth. And I think you really get a little bit of that coastal, salty, almost quality to the wine.
Yeah.
And it just got a little bit more of that kind of umptuous, but really restrained, which I think is great because, again, we talked about Napa being so full-bodied and such a warmer climate that this isn't going to be such a fruit bomb, as I think we like to call it.
Yeah, another thing about that sweetness is a little bit of Viognier that they add, which I think is also contributing to the softness. Because if it was 100% Syrah, it could be a little darker, it could be even more structured. Viognier is a great commonly used in Côte-Rôtie.
Yeah, historically in the northernmost area of the Northern Rhône, which is Côte-Rôtie, they blend in a little Viognier.
And for those of you who don't know, Viognier is a white varietal.
It is.
And it is known to be highly perfumed, you know, super aromatic, and it tends to have a kind of a richer, rounder texture. So it does go into a red wine a little better than, say, a Sauvignon Blanc might, right?
Which would completely change everything. This would no longer be that style of wine.
But I think that contributes. I think there's a little bit of new wood on here, and I think that Viognier kind of adds that sweeter nose, and I think provides a little balance between being super dark and brooding and just being a little more elegant and lifted.
And you can see the winemaker style. Ramey is trying to kind of be in that Northern Rhône style, using a little bit of Viognier, kind of a nod to the winemaker, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and to the region. And I'd say it's not uncommon to find California Syrahs with a kiss of Viognier. I'd say that Ramey leans on the higher side, about 10%. Some of them you'll see as low as 3%, 5%, things like that of Viognier.
And it's just enhancing. It doesn't hinder the wine in any way. It just enhances it, which is really nice.
Right. And I did want to get them a little place here, just so that we know where we are.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is just a quick little map. So the Napa Valley, you can see over to the east side, there's actually a mountain range that runs along here, and that's why we have
the Mayacamas.
The Mayacamas thing. Oh, the Vaca, yeah.
And the Vaca is on the east side.
On the eastern side there, and that's what creates the Napa Valley, right? So we're talking about a valley, an actual, it traps a lot of heat, and why Cabernet is so special from there, because it gets this density and ripeness that's just unfound in a lot of places.
But when you move completely towards the west, you get that coastal style, which you get in Sonoma, which is, you can get vineyards where you're standing in the vineyard in Sonoma coast and you can see the ocean.
Unobstructed winds keep acidity high, in the grapes, because the cool winds come in at night. Not having another mountain range like Sonoma Valley has right here. So we have Sonoma Valley, which is another valley. So in a sense, a lot of Sonoma coast is two valleys over.
That's right.
And has direct influence from the ocean, which keeps that acidity, that balance and freshness, which is why I think we are a little attracted to this style of coastal Syrah, because of that influence that keeps the tension in the wine and things like that. Yeah.
Just so much more approachable.
Yeah. That was fun. I love geography.
It is. It's always good sometimes to be able to look and say, okay, that's where it is. I'm a visual learner myself. So sometimes seeing a map helps me, see where this wine is coming from. Okay. And then the next is you have to go there.
Yeah. So without getting me too hungry, what are you going to have Ramey Syrah with here?
So with Ramey, again, those kind of roasted grill features, but I think Greek and kind of Eastern Mediterranean flavors would go really. Lamb would go really well with this. Roasted eggplant, I think, is another one that kind of comes to mind.
Because it is a little richer and because it has a little more kind of those black olive
Yeah.
notes and those kind of, it's less about kind of the spice and it's more about kind of the concentration of the wine. And I'm with you. I mean, Mediterranean.
You need something a little bit, just a little bit more hearty. So again, like that,
the Faury,
the lamb, I think would go really well.
I love that. Yeah, and there's just a little more, tannin. There's a little more concentration. There's a little more everything in this one.
And again, that's that kind of a little bit of that New World sense to it, without being over the top, which is nice.
Great wine though. So
value though, what?
Yeah, $28 on the website.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's a great steal for a California wine, right?
Yeah. And Dave Ramey is one of the greats in California. He's an iconic California winemaker. We also have a Chardonnay and some, winery that we feature because
that's amazing.
Classic.
Yeah, that's always good. You can get two different kind of styles from, a really great California winemaker. That's good.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now we're going to completely go on the other side of the globe to Australia, which, I know people are kind of familiar with Shiraz. You see it a lot. It can be
yellowtail.
Yes, yellowtail. It can be kind of inexpensive, and you're not really sure what you're going to get. But I think the thing about Australia is it's a region that, if you're interested in learning about wine, has so many nuanced styles that are absolutely fantastic in the glass. And I think the Tyrrell, because it's a historical winery as well. It's been around for a long time. They really know what they're doing.
Don't let the screw top fool you.
No, and honestly, the great thing about a screw top is that it's not going to be flawed or corked in any way, right? And it's just easy. You can take it to the beach. You don't have to bring a corkscrew with you. It's just like that no fuss style of wine.
Well, it's funny too because it's by far the most expensive wine in the lineup.
See, you don't take the screw top as it being that it's inexpensive, right?
Yeah. I mean, these are going for $65 on the website. I'm sorry, $55 on the website. And here in America, I feel like we still have that kind of cork thing, and Europe as well. We still want to use those corks. Germany and Australia, they've really embraced, kind of the eco qualities.
It's so much more better for the world to not have to harvest all that cork from those trees.
Yeah, so it's more eco
and it's recyclable.
It creates more stability in transport and things like that than a cork actually does. So don't be fooled by that. You pay top dollar.
Yeah.
So on the nose though, right away,
it's deeper.
Yeah, you keep seeing deeper with fruit, right? Like I still had that olive note, still the savory of Ramey. This one has just like kind of those blue and purple fruits you're mentioning.
The blue and the purple are coming out again, and it's not over the top. It's there in those subtle qualities are really coming through the glass.
Now in Shiraz, in Australia, in Barossa Valley and things like that, we mentioned that this is Hunter Valley. So in Barossa Valley, you might find things even darker and fuller, almost like you compare to, Ramey, Sonoma to Napa Valley, right? So, you might find higher alcohols. This is only sitting at 13.5, but it still gives you all of those Shiraz qualities, right? It gives you that kind of really dark berry fruit.
Yeah.
A little spice, but it's not like a black pepper spice. It's like
no, I mean, it's like almost like white pepper. It's softer. It's and I think honestly the ageability of that too, because if you think about flavor changes over time, and that white pepper is only going to enhance over time, I think, and also soften. The tannins are there, but they're umptuous. They're not coarse. They're sweet tannins.
Yeah, it's a really nice texture on the palate. I mean, I even though it's the heaviest wine it feels, or the richest wine of the bunch, it's one that really, it's pretty easy to drink on its own because it isn't so high in alcohol. It's got a lot of approachable fruit. It's got plenty of acidity to keep me coming back for more. So
you know, the fruit is there, but it isn't so overpowering. You know, I think this is extremely well balanced wine with the fruit and the texture and a little bit of that spice right in the middle of your palate. It just makes you want to go back for another sip.
Just a kiss a whole cluster does that little
Just
trick.
a little bit of whole cluster really helps. If not, I mean, it would just be so fat and so rich. I don't think you could only maybe have one glass.
There's that little tension on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think as far as styles of food? What do you think? I mean, of course, yes, like everything we've talked about, grilled meats, but is there anything else that maybe?
I mean, honestly, if there was a wine to have with cheese on the table, I would do this with cheese.
Oh, that's good, right? Cheese always needs a good pairing besides white wine.
Yeah, white wine is usually good, or even sweet wine is really nice with cheese as well, or savory wines. But a lot of people don't want that. A lot of people want red wine. So if I have a guest over who really wants red wine, or just to enjoy a bottle on its own, or have a little cheese out on the table, it's almost like adding like a little bit of berry compote, to your cheese board or something like that, and
a little bit of that pepper quality, just a little bit, it really kind of enhance the style of cheese.
And if there happened to be like salumi on there or something, it'd be okay.
I wouldn't be upset.
Okay.
I wouldn't be upset.
Right? But yeah, it's definitely one of those. And so I would just say that to sum it up, like, Syrah is so versatile, as you mentioned. There's kind of a Syrah for everybody.
There really can be.
I've got 3 different friends that I would serve these 3 Syrahs to.
Yeah.
And the right place and the right time, I bring you to one or the other. I'll drink them all. Again, don't get me wrong, I'll drink them all. But
honestly, in the course of one night, though, as you could go through your dinner experience, you could serve each one of these right after the other, because it is kind of lighter quality, a little bit more rich, and then this with a little cheese at the very end of the night, right?
Thank you.
Great.
I gotta have you back on. This is fantastic.
I'll come anytime.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining.
It's been such a pleasure.
Oh my God.
Cheers.
I missed it. Cheers. Cheers, everybody.